So still working on our statistical chapter here. In 11.2, we look at statistical studies and sampling methods. So talking about different types of statistical studies and different methods to look at these statistical studies. So again, kind of have a get our brains going here, and then we'll get into some of our definitions here. So Jacinta and Felix were each asked to design a study to answer the question, what proportion of students at this school listen to music while studying? Okay. You have one on the left. I'm pronouncing it Jacinta, unless someone else has a better pronunciation. I don't know. And then we've got Felix on the right there. Okay. So I'll let you guys kind of peruse the information there. And then question A, what group did Jacinta select from to conduct her study, and what group did Felix select from? So what do you see here? Okay. Jacinta chose her friends in gym class. What about Felix?
You just kind of walk around the library and solve it.
Okay. Felix with students in the library. Okay. So, okay. So Jacinta picked friends in gym class. And Felix picked students in the library. What? But did he only pick people listening in the library? Did he only pick people listening to music in the library?
No, it's just the hundreds.
Yeah. The tally marks represent students in the library listening to music. However, what's it say he total surveyed? 100 students. So that means there's the other piece of that group that we assume is also in the library, but not listening to music.
Big library.
Well, we don't know where this is, so probably not a high school. But if so, it was a very full library in the high school.
Well, they said gym class.
Okay.
Well, it's the gym class.
Well, so it was a big library,
She only
big
picked
school.
Friends in gym class. Those strict students.
Okay. So B, how did Jacinta choose which members of her group to question? And then how did Felix choose which members from his group to observe? Well, Jacinta's we've already talked about. How did she choose members? Right. Jacinta asked friends in gym class. What about Felix? Well, not just people listening to music. The tallies represent people listening to music, but in total it says 100. So just in general, students in the library, right? This question is kind of redundant now that I think about it, but the point is Jacinta questioned friends, yes? Okay. I guess it was technically friends in gym. Whereas Felix could be questioned, right? Also could have been observed. It doesn't specify. We don't know for sure. But he gathered information about all students in the library. So I'm just going to use the word questioned. Now, when you're ready, all of this leads up to C. All of this leads up to part C. So part C, who designed a better study, Jacinta or Felix, and explain.
Felix.
Okay.
Well, you think about,
You
just,
know,
hear me out. Right. It says he just asked students listening to music in the library. It's not said they're studying. In the question, listen to music while studying.
Okay.
Alright, look, you're thinking.
Ah.
We're thinking too
You're
much
going.
about this.
No, what are you gonna do in a
What do we assume that people are doing in the library then?
study?
Study. Now,
Sarah.
I-
I'm studying.
Okay.
Well, not a lot.
how often do you hang out in the library?
You'd be surprised.
Oh,
It's a smart cookie.
4 days a week.
Okay. Generally speaking, guys, this is where I get it. We want to get nitpicky and specific, but general thinking here. Okay?
Yeah, Logan.
Generalize. We said Felix. And regardless, it says he questioned. It doesn't say they were studying. This is just because Jacinta wasn't watching these students listen to music. These were just friends that she questioned.
I say too.
Okay?
You ask people.
And this one, Felix, he could have just observed them. He could have also walked up and asked. Okay. So Felix. More people, right? Somehow, in other words, he gathered information about 100 people, as opposed to Jacinta, 7 friends? Okay. The difference between Jacinta just asked a handful of friends versus Felix went to a more public area, a more generalized area where it's not just friends. Okay, you're going to get a wider variety of people. Anything else? I think those are the big things I have. Let's see. He didn't distinguish between friends and other students. He got 100 students. I guess the other thing I have listed here, he chose a group of students from multiple classes, meaning the library are going to have more of a variety of people, whereas here it's just, again, back to friends, but also just a gym class. So, I don't know. Regardless, I think we can all say, all agree Felix. Did not distinguish between friends and other students. So asked a variety. Collected data from 100 students. Just had a thought. Nothing says all 100 students were in the library at the same time. Could have he gotten people as they come and go?
Ask people, are you going to listen to music?
Or just in general, it's do you listen to music while studying, you know? So. And then the other, as I said, the other piece I have is chose students from multiple classes. Several different things you can write down there. Okay. So, leading us into statistical studies and sampling methods. At the bottom of this page, we have some definitions, yes? Okay, so as we get ready to go to the next page, we're going to be talking about 3 different types of studies, okay? And that's one of the things you're going to be expected to do is be able to differentiate between these 3 types. So our first one we're going to talk about is a sample survey. A sample survey asks every member of a sample the same set of questions and records the answer. Okay, so you're not necessarily taking from the entire population, but you're taking from some subgroup. Remember we talked about population versus sample yesterday. So we're taking from a sample or subgroup, and you're asking everybody the same set of questions. Okay, so example, a newspaper poll randomly selected residents in a town about which mayoral candidate they prefer. Okay, so it's not necessarily asking everybody in the town, but randomly selected residents. Okay, second type, experiment. An experiment involves applying a treatment to some group of groups or some, several groups and measuring the effects of the treatment. The example here, a doctor conducts a clinical trial of a new blood pressure medicine by prescribing it to half the patients in the study and measuring the effect it has on the blood pressure. Okay, so it's an experiment. It's applying some type of treatment or whatever the case may be and looking for the results. So that's experiment. And then the third one, observational study. Measures or observes, key thing there, members of a sample in such a way they are not affected by the study. So observational, you're more observing, you're not necessarily interacting, but just observing. A grocery store, the example, a grocery store wonders how many customers bring reusable grocery bags to the store. They have an employee stand at the checkout and count the number of people using reusable bags. They're not going up and questioning people, asking them, they're just watching. Okay, so observational study. So those are the three different types of studies we're going to talk about. So keep that page handy, because what we're going to do on the next page now is go and talk about the different possibilities here. Okay? So, I'm not sure why I broke this into two sets, but probably how I took the questions from my book. But what type of study could you use to answer the following questions? So, picking from sample, experiment, and observational. Okay, sample survey, an experiment, or an observational study. Does urban pollution have an effect on rates of asthma? Could we go observational? Okay. Is that something that urban pollution, you don't necessarily have to go to anybody and ask a question or anything, but could it be some, where you look at the data? Okay, kind of in the background, looking at the data. Okay. And I'm going to go with this whole chapter, as you guys are learning, is a chapter that could be argued, right? Okay, I will say observational is what I have. I'm not going to say that the others couldn't creep in there in some way or another on some of these. Okay? So, just thoughts there. So, but I do have this one as observational study. Okay. So I guess think about looking more at the data. And I don't have explanations written down. So I'm going to say write something down if you want it. I don't really have it on this side. Okay. B, how many students in a school would like the cafeteria to serve breakfast? Are you raising your hand with an answer because you want the cafeteria to serve breakfast?
I got an answer too.
Okay.
Survey.
Survey, as in, what is it, sample survey?
Yep. Survey.
Okay. Yes? No?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Could you take a group and ask them the question to get an overall response?
Yep.
Okay.
Walk to the cafeteria, get on the mic. How would you like to serve breakfast?
Do we really want to go to the cafeteria to ask it, though?
Why would you not?
Yeah, where else would you go to?
Well, I was going to say, and we haven't talked about bias yet. That's coming up. Okay, but if I go to the cafeteria and I say, who wants us to serve breakfast? Well, what are you probably doing in the cafeteria? Eating breakfast. Okay.
Auto in lunch period.
Oh, if you're going in at the lunch period. Okay.
Yeah, well,
Now, if you specify that,
Not everybody goes.
if they're eating breakfast, why would they not be serving breakfast?
but
Exactly. That's what he thinks of that.
okay. So, sample survey, somehow or another, gathering that sample, doing that survey. Okay. I guess going in at lunch and asking, that does make more sense. My brain had us going in at breakfast. Okay, C. A group of plants is not growing well compared to the rest. What should you change to improve their growth?
Patrick's theory.
Okay.
Let's use Patrick's theory.
It's the third one in the group. What have we not used, right?
Experiment.
Okay. Now, but it also talks about changing something, yes?
Yes.
A sample survey doesn't change anything. It just asks the question. Observational is no interaction. It's just observing. So if we're talking about changing something, we definitely have to talk experiment. Okay. Okay. Again, I'm not sure why I did this. I should have put it all as one big set, but
And let us know that there's 2 of each.
I guess so. Even then, be honest. If I just put 6 out there and there's 3 choices, what are you guys going to assume?
I mean, I'm going to read each problem carefully.
You're still going to assume there's 2 of each. Okay.
All right.
A gym asks its customers if they would prefer the gym to open earlier in the morning. Okay. If a gym's asking its customers, that's taking a sample, so some portion of that population, of that group, and it's asking them. Okay, it's not just observing, it's not changing anything, it is doing a survey. So sample survey. A gym tries out a new weightlifting method to see if it will build muscle for their customers faster than their current method.
Experiment.
Okay, they're changing something, right? So since they're changing something, this is an experiment. A gym counts the customers who come in before 8 a.m. Observational. They're not changing anything, so they're not experimenting. They're not going up and surveying people. Do you go to the gym before 8 o'clock? They're just observing them. So observational study.
How about the, wait, did it go? Sorry. I thought it went from like observation, sample, experiment. I thought it went.
The reverse.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Now, there are a couple of these that you do have to, be careful and think about. I think as you've seen all the variety of questions, though, you've kind of got an idea of how these work. Okay. Be familiar with these 3 names. Okay. Observational study, experiment, and sample survey. Okay. Now, we talked about it a little bit a moment ago when we were talking about where you would go to ask people if the cafeteria should serve breakfast. Okay. And that's going to bring us to the discussion of bias. So we're going to talk about what bias is and determining sources of bias. So a study has bias if it systematically produces results that misrepresent a population. Okay? In other words, let's go back to the breakfast thing. If you go down to the cafeteria while they are serving breakfast and say, should our school continue to serve breakfast? Well, who are you going to be asking? You're going to be asking the people that opt to eat breakfast already. So do you want the school to continue eating breakfast? Yeah. Okay, so there's some bias there.
I just took it to mean, do you want them to start serving breakfast? Not continue.
Well, and that one I agree, but I'm just trying to give us an idea of, okay, there's an example of bias. If you go to some place where they're already serving breakfast, people are sitting there eating breakfast, it's already being served, and say, do you want to continue it? Well, that group's going to vote yes. Okay? So that's an idea of bias. Okay? Let's look at a couple examples here. In the following situations, are the differences between groups potentially due to bias? Okay? So in a psychologist is conducting surveys to study the happiness levels of people who live in a neighborhood. She asked the same question to the two samples below, chosen from the population of the neighborhood. So the first one was 100 people surveyed on a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the result was 65% of those people are happy. And then the second one, 100 people surveyed on a Monday morning, and the result was 35% people were happy.
Yes, it's bias.
We know
Okay.
it's bias, Jane.
So,
Actually, we don't. That's the question.
are the differences between the groups potentially due to bias? So here, she went into this neighborhood, surveyed the people in the neighborhood, 100 people both times, they got two different responses. Why did she get two kind of drastically different responses?
Monday's
Thoughts, Tanner?
different days. Monday is sad. Saturday's
Okay.
It's also the morning versus afternoon.
Okay. Sunny Saturday afternoon.
I was happy with
People are wide awake, having a great day. Yeah.
Not at work, not at school, generally speaking, on the Monday through Friday people, right? Okay. What about Monday morning?
Well,
school.
Everyone's going back to
School, it's early.
work,
Morning.
school. We had to get up early.
Do we?
Okay.
Do we?
So,
Yeah, we're talking
Okay.
about Monday.
with this in mind, could the differences between those responses be due to bias? And the answer is yes. And in this case, the bias is presented based on when you ask the question. Okay? Are you going around Saturday afternoon and grabbing people who are out and enjoying their, time off and the weather outside? And Monday morning, are you grabbing people as they're getting in their cars and heading out to work? Okay? So, yeah, the key here is when the surveys were performed could cause some bias. So, and that's all I have written here is when the surveys were performed could result in the bias. Okay. So we'll Sunday, Saturday afternoon versus Monday morning. Okay. Start reading B when you're ready. School wants to know the average height of its students. The school randomly chooses some students and measures their height. Some students are under 5 feet tall, and some are over 6 feet 5 inches tall.
I think it's
Okay.
even with fixed students, right?
So the question is this due to bias?
No, it's random.
Okay.
I can cut off how far.
Now, it says the school randomly chooses some students. Okay. Did it say it randomly went someplace specific and chose students? Okay. No. Okay. It just said they randomly chose some students. Okay. So whether looking at a class list or, whatever the case is. Okay. Standing at the front door. The key is, it's just they randomly chose some difference or chose some students. So is there a bias here? No, there's just it's life, right? There's just a natural difference. Some people are tall, some people are short. So on mine, I've written no, a natural difference will exist. So no bias. A natural difference will exist. So the point there, not everything's going to be due to bias. Okay. And another one when you're ready. A drink company calls 500 people at random and asks, is our product or our rival's product the best soft drink on the market? Why is this question a potential source of bias?
Because some people might have been not too nice to say no.
Yes.
My
This
fault.
is a soft drink.
What if we raised our hands today?
Why would I use the hands today, Logan?
What if we raised our hands today?
Children.
I don't think I've ever raised my hand in this class.
Now Ruby's gonna raise her hand. So Okay. let's get some responses here.
Logan, go ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
Ruby.
Ruby raised her hand. You guys wanted hands or?
Your story?
Because
I
then
don't
a
think
soft
so.
drink company is the one calling.
Okay.
So
The soft drink company is the one calling. Is that a problem?
correct.
That's part of the problem. Yes. Okay. What else?
No. What else, Jake?
They're asking.
You took my answer.
You're the one that
You already didn't raise your hand.
Children.
That's Patrick. You raised
Children. Children.
Come on, guys. It's not mature.
So, first of all, one problem. Okay, let's break it down. One problem. It's a soft drink company calling and asking about soft drinks, yes? So that makes you, expect to say, if it's, Coke calling, what's Coke want you to say?
Pepsi's better.
They're wanting you to say Coke is better, right? If it's Pepsi calling, they're wanting you to say Pepsi is better. So that's an issue, right? What else is an issue here? And I don't know if it was said or not. Too many distractions, so
They can afford to answer. Like, if they call somebody and say, what product is better, they can be like, if you said Pepsi and Coke. And if Coke calls you and you say Pepsi, they can be like, oh, you said Coke, that's right.
not what I was thinking, but okay. That they don't have to report accurately if they're trying to get their company to look better.
Hey.
Go ahead, Logan.
Some people might think like Pepsi's better, but since Coke is on the line, they're gonna say Coke.
Gonna say Coke.
Or the opposite. Coke calls them, so they say Pepsi.
So they want to be difficult like Patrick.
That's what I would do.
Okay. What about how this question is asked?
I said our product.
Okay. Look at how the question is asked. Look at what's in quotes, gentlemen. Is our product or our rival's product the best soft drink on the market? So, not only are we asking, is it our product or the rival's product? So, if it's Coke calling, is Coke better or our rival? Okay. But how did they ask this question? They not only said that, but then they're also, they're kind of, the best soft drink on the market. What are they kind of insinuating? The better, right? Better product. So, the way the question is asked, okay, makes it a bias. Obviously we've discovered that there's bias. Okay, that was never a question. We all agreed on that one. But just the way it's asked also. Okay, so the way the question's asked and who's asking the question. Those are the two big issues that I see. However, we can get specifics on those. You guys have given lots of specifics. But those are the two things I see. I'm going to say bias due to who is asking the question. And how the question is asked. Okay. Got what we need there?
Yes, ma'am.
On the next page, okay, so here we're introducing the idea of bias and what it means for something to have bias, whether it be how a question is asked, who you ask the question to, who's asking the question. All of these options can present bias, okay? Now, we're going to talk, and we'll probably do our examples when we come back to notes, but we're going to talk about some sampling methods, and some sampling methods that are good and are going to help prevent bias, as opposed to some sampling methods that are going to encourage bias. Okay? So, when we talk about sampling methods, okay, we have a simple random sample. Okay? Each member of the population is equally likely to be chosen, and each possible sample of the size you want is equally likely to be chosen. Okay? Random. Every 10th person walking in the door is surveyed, or every, well, used to be a phone, you could say every 5th person called out of the phone book. Doesn't really exist anymore, but just, something that allows random, okay? Pulling 2 people from each classroom and asking. Things like that, okay? So just simple random sample. Now, we've got a couple of samples here where care must be taken to avoid bias, okay? So kind of a be careful thing. So a stratified sampling situation. So a stratified sample, when a population is divided into groups with similar characteristics and a sample is randomly chosen from each group. Okay? So the key there is you're divided into groups with similar characteristics. Okay? With that, though, you have a sample chosen from each group. So then you're still getting somewhat of a variety, okay? Clustering sample, population is divided into convenient clusters, and entire clusters are chosen randomly as the sample. Okay, again, you have to watch out for bias there. Again, also depends on what you're asking, okay? So convenient clusters, but you choose the whole cluster, as opposed to stratified, where you choose from each group. And then systematic sampling. We start with one member chosen at random and then use a rule such as every 3rd member of the population to select members. So that specific there is your systematic. There's some rule that gets you there. Okay. Now, a couple of samples with high risk of bias. Okay. These can have bias. Not saying they can't, but some high risk samples. Convenience, only choosing subjects that are in close proximity or easy to get to. Okay. Walking into the cafeteria that's already serving breakfast. Do you want them to continue serving breakfast? Okay. That's convenient. It's just easy to walk in and ask, right? Self-selected sampling. Using a sample made up of volunteers. This happens a lot with, responding to a survey. Okay. Who responds to a survey? You get a survey in your email or via text or something, or on a receipt after you leave a restaurant. Who responds to that survey? Well, if you have a really good service or really bad service, might you respond? Yeah. But does every debate take time to respond? No. Okay. So that's self-selected where, you choose if you respond. It's not, okay, I had to give an answer. You choose if you respond. So I think we'll save going through and answering the questions for Friday. And then we'll kind of talk about coming up with a couple of randomized experiments on the back. And then you should have some work time on Monday, or Friday, excuse me. Tomorrow, we'll eat some pie, hopefully. I guess if we're not eating pie, we could always talk about doing those. But I'm hoping we'll eat pie.
No, I think we should do that. I'm too, honestly. I don't see why.